to come on with us tonight. Tim Miller is a 30-year law enforcement and military professional, Secret Service, worked in the Washington, D.C., assigned to the Washington field office. And Tim's a Marine. Tim, you can give a little bit more about your background, but I wanted to talk about situational awareness as a starting point of all self-defense, personal security. We talk a lot on this channel about becoming your own first responder. So having some training in how to defend yourself with your hands, with your words, with all the different safety tools, but also being able to respond to an accident. Having some medical training, being able to stop the bleed or use a tourniquet, how to help your family. But it all starts with this idea of situational awareness, and situational awareness meaning more than just looking around you when you get out of the car and seeing who's there, or before you come out of your house in the morning, or before you go into the church. What does situational awareness really look like in all the different areas? And I wanted to talk about that in a minute. But first, I'll give you a second just to give a little bit more of a background about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So, Matt, I can keep a job regardless of the many stops along the way. As you said, I was a Marine officer out of college, then was a police officer outside of D.C., then went to Secret Service. And my entire time with the Secret Service was in the Washington area. And so, you work the details and all that kind of stuff. But then after 9/11, I transitioned over to Homeland Security. We worked terrorism, was actually assigned to Homeland Security. And then I wrapped up in training. And exactly to your point, man, the entire foundation of all security is situational awareness. And I would point out, and I think you and I've talked about this before, that your security is always proactive. It's never reactive. You're always proactively planning for, hey, what would I do if? And we talked a lot, I think, our last time about what it looks like to be situationally aware is not that we're paranoid, but we're prepared. We put our phones away. We're constantly looking around. And a lot of the training we do is the mental ability that you can develop if you take the time to notice what you normally wouldn't notice. You notice that person standing off to the side. You notice that vehicle is suspicious. And when I talk to most people, they all say, yeah, I knew something wasn't right. And so I encourage you, go with that. That's what situational awareness is proactively preparing for a threat. And that's why I love what you do, because if you can gain those initial few seconds, if you can get that distance, if you can see it better, if you can see it and make it not happen, that's a win. So I know you and I are lockstep on everything you do. All of your security starts with seeing it first and then preparing to do something about it.
Absolutely. And the reason that it occurred to me to talk about situational awareness with you tonight is, as I go through your channel, and I've been binge watched, I think, almost everything now. I keep finding new gems on your channel that I haven't seen yet. And if any of you want to, if you're not following Tim already, the link is below in the description below. But it's very much worth your time to go, because Tim's going to break down actual events and say what was right, what was wrong, what the person did right, what you could have done differently, and talk about situational awareness in each particular circumstance, or in each one of these events that you're breaking down. And I was thinking earlier today, I heard last night, I watched a little bit of the FBI Director Wray gave a presentation to the Senate, or I think he was being grilled by the Senate. And one of the things that what he was asked and he responded to is the current state of events or state of affairs in our country now and around the world. And I think the EU also came out with some warnings that we're in a very unique time, and a time that's more dangerous than we've been in a long time. And I think the phrase that he used were red lights flashing. And I think the reference was before 9/11, there were a lot of red lights flashing that they missed. And then we had that terror attack on the World Trade Center and in Washington. And what he said yesterday was, we're in a much worse situation now. It's worse than it's ever been before. And he said the lights are really flashing. And he mentioned specifically churches, synagogues, and schools, and places of worship, but also places where people congregate. And I think the warnings coming out of Europe are more widespread. They're at Christmas gatherings, they're at outdoor markets, and so these are specific warnings. And I don't think that the government comes out and gives these warnings lightly. They usually have intel or information that there's
Mhm.
chatter or there's some talk about something happening. So when we talk about situational awareness, we know now what it looks like. Put your phone in your pocket, pay attention to what's happening. Look before you get out of the car. Look at the bush. Before you walk in. If there's a light out, cross the street where it's light. There are a lot of things that you can do, as you said. But give us kind of a sit rep, like with situationally aware, because you're deeper into this than I am, and you have a much broader scope. You're traveling the world. You're talking to the top people. I'm sure you still have deep connections in the intelligence community and law enforcement. So what do we really have to pay attention to these days, and how is it different than it was before?
That's such a good question, Matt. After 9/11, I was assigned to the director of the FBI to his staff to review intelligence. And after a massive attack like we saw on 9/11, we were still shocked to find the number of communities and the number of people that were involved in either supporting or directly being involved in the act of terrorism. And from what I'm hearing, nothing that we did then is compared to now. When the director of the FBI says red flashing lights, that signifies that there's hard information that suggests that we are moving into an era, quite frankly, we've never seen before in our lifetime. And why is that possible? Well, it's possible for a number of reasons. There are entire communities now that will support terrorists. We're seeing a massive change in attitude towards supporting, Palestine and Hamas, and that's inherently dangerous for the United States because it means that people that are true enemies of our country are going to be supported, and it's easier for them to hide. And, DHS traditionally has said if you see something, say something. Well, that's going to become more problematic. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I do want people to understand the importance of the severity of the times that we're living in, and not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of wisdom and preparation. We should be wise and prepared. What we saw on October 7th is likely going to be repeated in the United States. And that's what everybody is concerned about, quite frankly. They're concerned that the attack methods are gonna vary. And let's pause for a second. What have they traditionally used? Bombs, bullets, poison, and any methodology that identifies a massive emotional target. So, what did they use in the West Bank? Children. Could we expect that to be a target here? Yes. What do they use? What are they targeting? Synagogues, houses of worship. But here's another concerning thing, and a lot of us don't think about this. We're seeing information suggesting that they would attack a critical infrastructure. Well, what does that mean? Well, you're talking about electrical power stations, you're talking about water supply, you're talking about cable communications nodes. Folks, they get it that if they're able to do that, they can impact a lot of people. And so for us, being wise just literally means if you don't have 3 months or more of food, you should be thinking about that today. If you don't have the ability to have water filtration capabilities, you better be thinking about that today. If you don't have the ability to secure your residence, in other words, if you've really not looked at your home through the lens of security, you better be looking at that today. If you don't have the skills that Matt teaches and that we train, to defend yourself and others, you ought to be thinking about that today. Because what we know is that it's likely going to get worse in the days ahead. The open border situation's made it much worse. We do know that folks have crossed into the US with bad intentions. And so here we are. And again, not through the lens of fear, but through the lens of wisdom and preparation. Because what would you do if you didn't have power for, we in Florida, we've experienced that with hurricanes, and it's a bad thing. But what if it was an extended period? What would you do? What would you do if you couldn't go to Publix and buy what you needed? for the short term? What would you do? And those are the things where we're not thinking irrationally, we're thinking through wisdom and preparation. I want to be the one prepared, because here's the cool part. If you're prepared and others aren't, you can help others. And I think we all agree that's why we're on this earth, to help people. And so, in terms of moving around, I discouraged. The FBI came out and said, "Hey, don't go to New York during Thanksgiving." Well, I just want to assure everybody listening that doesn't happen because they're trying to communicate fear. It's usually the opposite. They don't want to cause people to panic and be alarmed. But when you hear alerts for large crowds, those kinds of things, maybe this is a season where it'd be okay not to be so heavily involved. Christmas is a very ideological target for the extreme terrorist. And so those kinds of things, when you're going to church, look in the parking lot, be prepared. If you're on a church security team, be extra vigilant. It's not the time to socialize in this season. It's the time to watch, prepare, and stand ready to step in and hopefully try to stop something.
Amen to that. And I know, that idea of paying attention to what's happening around you. I know, we're kind of beating the dead horse with situational awareness, but because I go to a couple different churches, they're all in the same family. And I see a lot of the different security, and I see two kinds of security. I see the ones that are there developed by the professionals like yourself who know what they're doing. They are on top of it. They are paying attention. And then I see the duty officer who's getting, time and a half. He works in the police department, and he's like this the
Yeah.
whole time. And I think, he's compromised himself. He's not able to pay attention. He's not able to protect anybody. And at best, he's going to respond to something instead of prevent it. So, and that brings me to this idea of what you teach, which is this, and you made it really clear to me when you said that, police officers respond and security prevents. You're
Right.
there for prevention and protection. And I think,
Right.
for what we do on this channel, we're talking so much about preparing so you don't have to perish, or prepare so you don't panic, right? And that's what we taking the fear out of it and saying, take some steps, prepare yourself with some food, prepare yourself with water. And filtration is so inexpensive now. I mean, it used to be hard to get. Now you can get all these things so simply if you just get them a little bit at a time, put them to the side. But this idea of this protector, being the protector for yourself, being the protector for your family, requires that extra level of attention and awareness. And so, we talked about what's happening around the world, and what, the environment that we live in now. What do you think that we could do? Like one thing that we could do as as a person whose desire is to create that personal first responder or personal bodyguard, being the bodyguard for your family. As we bring it back to kind of a practical application, what other tips do you have, or what idea do you have? What kind of training do you have in addition to the self defense and the hands and the feet and the sticks and I know you have a course coming up where you teach people how to use this very effectively, and
Yeah.
they can get that on your channel. They can get more information if they follow your channel on the courses
Yeah.
that you teach with that. And I think you have some of the best trainers in the world who teach people how to defend themselves and their families using one of these kinetic
Yeah.
tools. But what
That's
other
right.
thing, did I miss? What if you could give me one tip if I'm just starting out and I haven't paid attention to anything, and all of a sudden I wake up in a sweat in the middle of the night and I say, man, I got to do something to protect my family. I'm starting to feel this extra stress. I can't sleep. How can you give me some peace of mind, or where would I go first?
Yeah, it's funny that, and you're a master. I mean, you do this every day, but training inspires people with confidence. The one thing that I encourage everybody, and I train corporations, and I train churches, I train schools: own your own security. Begin to think like a security person. Again, not in fear, not in panic, not in paranoia, but think about the most important question you can ask to train your mind for a real crisis is to ask yourself, what would I do if? It's interesting when you drive down the road, there's two types of drivers. There's folks that drive right into an accident, and there's folks that see that accident happening before it ever happens and they avoid it. Some would call it defensive driving. It's the same thing in security. I would much rather ask, hey, what would I do if? What would I do if? And then have a plan than to kind of drive up into the middle of the intersection and get T-boned. So that's the one thing that I encourage everybody to do. Step one, own your own security. And what does that mean? It means you're prepared, you have a plan. It means you're thinking through, dynamically, similar to what you train, Matt. No single encounter is the same. You may have to do different things with different times, with different people. And that's a security incident. No security incident's the same. If you look around and you see somebody that's paying particular attention to you, and it seems like they're beginning to focus on you, and you notice that, that's a win, because now you're operationally planning to be ahead of what they're thinking, which, if they're a bad person, they're thinking about attacking you. And that's where owning your own security, not saying, oh, well, if something happens, I'll dial 911. Let me tell you, folks, the police are still out there. They're still going to respond, but it may not be as quickly as you think. And so that's why, if you own your own, especially in these times, own your own security, have a plan, be prepared. And then, what you do, Matt, and what I try to do is equip people with skill, because it's nice to think about it, plan for it, prepare for it. But if you can't do it, then it's a problem. And if you own a handgun in today's world, boy, I tell you, you better be training. You better be prepared.
Amen for that.
Um, know what the law says, know what the facts are before you that would even, get you thinking about using that, and then have skill, because today's world is becoming more and more challenging. And you want to make sure that you're so prepared that you know the law, you know the facts in front of you, and you're taking actions that are wise and prudent at the time, because having a weapon of any kind is not the solution if you don't know how to wisely use it.
Amen. That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. We'll finish with that for tonight. I really wanted to get you on here so that my audience could start to take a look at what you're doing, because
Thank you,
I
man.
feel like, I've done so much of the cane training and the weapons training, and I'll continue to do all that. But I also want to try to shift and try to bring in some more experts like yourself who can give this broader perspective. So when I make a video and I'm saying, look, this happens, here's how you respond, I'm basing it on real life events that I've seen on channels like yours. So when I see what happened in the tunnel, the guy's walking through and he has to defend himself, or he could have made a better decision and walked away. I'm learning from your channel, and then I'm coming and making the videos here and saying, well, if I were in that scenario, this is how I do it. And I think that when my audience starts to kind of expand, and I know a lot of you guys already do that anyway, but you look at what other people are doing, what other professionals who've been in this space for so long, like Tim does. Tim breaks it down and says, this was right, this was wrong, this is how you can look at it, this is how it could have been really bad, this is how it could have been much better, and what would you do? And I think that the best thing that I found on your channel is that it causes me to think, and it causes
Yeah.
me to wonder, what would I have done? How could I have done it? And it's humbling, because you realize that all of the practice that we do in a place like this, it's all just theory. It's
Hmm.
theory, and who knows if it works? If it's not
Hmm.
pressure tested, if it doesn't happen in the street, if it doesn't happen
Yeah.
to you, it just remains theory. And so it's very dangerous if you just leave it on that level of the theory of what happens here, because there's no connection to reality. So
That's
finding
right.
a channel like yours, I wanted to bring you on here so that people could see you. Go follow you at Lionheart Skills, and again, the links below, and start to get connected to that different level, a different way of seeing things. And I think that I know the information that you're bringing forth is just stacked on years and years and years of real world experience. And that's something that we need in an internet world of experts. And
Yeah.
everybody can be an expert if they have a cell phone and a YouTube or an Instagram. But
That's true.
the real experts are out
Mm.
there. The real experts
Yeah.
are Miller. And so I appreciate you coming on tonight. I'd love to have you come back and talk to us about all the other aspects, and do these 10, 15 minutes at a time,
Yeah.
but I have a lot more questions, a lot more things that I think you could add value to for my followers here.
Well, Matt, I just want to say thank you for what you do. I tell you, as I watch your videos, and this is not a mutual admiration society, but I am dumbfounded because everywhere I go, especially teachers, schools, they ask me, "Hey, we can't have, pepper spray," or I've learned more watching how you take simple tools and make them incredibly effective to buy the most important thing you can have in a security incident, and that's time.
Yeah.
And you really do that well. And so I think this is a great marriage. I know your heart is my heart. I just want people safe. I've been on the scene. I've seen horrible things, and I just want people to be prepared for what I believe is a storm that's coming. And it's not just me, again, it's the FBI director and even a lot of government officials. So I just appreciate your passion to keep people safe. And that I share that. And obviously, anything I can do to serve, I'm thankful for you. And I think you're right. I think we both have the same objective. And actually, the more I think about it, Matt, I think your skills are what you're much more likely to use your skills than to involve other weapons or tools. And
Well, I learned that as a young military policeman in the Marine Corps, is that
yeah,
I didn't have to go to my baton, my PR-24,
yeah,
and beat somebody with it because I knew how to use my voice. I knew
that's
how to
right.
use my hands. I knew how to apply the right amount of pressure and the right kind of joint locks and separate people. And I would see
Yeah,
the guys I trained with who were not trained. They had all the tools and and they had the look of terror in their eyes because they didn't know
that's
how to
right.
fight. And
That's
so,
right.
if you know how to fight and you know how to defend yourself, you have levels. You don't have to escalate all the way to that level. And that's probably one of the things that law enforcement could benefit from the most, as we see, is more training, right? More
I
training
agree.
and
Yeah,
de-escalation, but training and escalation. How do they escalate without going from 0 to 100 and putting, themselves in a life or death situation? Because so many levels before that they could be able to go to and diffuse and resolve a situation. So I've always had kind of that concept and that idea, and have from having that experience because I started martial arts when I was a little kid, and I had
yeah,
done it since I'm 9, and I've been doing it,
yeah.
and I love it. Right, I love to apply pressure and a little bit of pain and compliance, and it's my nature, and I love
Oh,
to get hit, and I love to get hit and hit. It's
yeah,
who I am. So anyway,
yeah.
so it's been great. Thank you for your
Thank
time
you,
tonight.
brother.
And again, if,
Thank you.
for those of you guys who are on here in the comment section, thank you so much. I see all you in there. Thank you, Alita, for that donation. And the next time we do this, we'll ask you guys to ask some questions for Tim too, and we'll because we call this the virtual dojo. This worldwide, we're
I
all in
love
this
it.
community. And there's a
I
saying I
love it.
heard recently. We're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm, but we have different boats. And I
That's
think
wise.
that from a wise
Yeah,
man. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And some of us are in an aircraft carrier, some of us are in a yacht, some of us are in a rowboat, and some are just barely paddling water with your head
That's
above.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so we might not all be in the same boat, but we're all in the same storm, and we can
yeah.
start to help each other and pull each other up into the life raft. So it's been great. I'll see you on the next time,
Thanks,
and
bro. Thanks for
thank
having
you
me.
for everybody for being here. I'll respond to the comments when I get a section or a second, and I always circle back and respond to everybody. So Tim,
Thanks,
have a
guys.
great night.
Thank you. Be
We'll
safe
talk
out
soon.
there.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.